the aspirations or the needs of the communities, but also respond to the gaps that the country faces with regards to sanitation access?
Thank you. That's a very interesting question. And the reason why I say it's interesting is some of us define democracy is something we say, the rule of the people, by the people, for the people. What is the other one? By, for. Hi, good. Now, I just want to prick your minds. Now, when you talk about self-regulation, that is, you're going to rule me the way I want to be ruled. That's exactly what he says. Now, in other words, I look and reflect on myself. How do I want to live? Okay, so if you talk about self-regulation, is you doing or ensuring that you have got policies, you have got procedures which are best for your profession. And this is anchored in the Constitution. And we have seen that professional bodies are supposed to be self-regulating. Reason? Because they are the ones who know how that profession should be. There is no way you're going to bring an outsider to come and tell a water engineer what to do. There is no way you're going to bring an outsider to come and tell a Missy how to do the job he's doing. You're going to bring me a lawyer to come and tell a Missy how to empty the, how to empty the pits. No. So it is for Missy and all of us and every player in our space to say how best do we manage ourselves. That's what we mean by self-regulation. And then once you say so, then you move to the next step where you write like a code of conduct. For us to improve in this sector in which we are, we shall be doing 1. We shall be doing 2. We shall be doing 3. In the event we don't do 2 and 3, then these are the consequences. Then we move then next in order to incentivize, in order to have the we call critical mass following. Now then we start broadcasting what we are doing. See, so self-regulation is for us to self-reflect how we want to manage ourselves in this sector. And it starts with us because we know what we are doing, we know what you want. Nobody will ever tell us. And when we are doing that, we should not shy away because this is our right. And when you say that you are having regulatory bodies coming, remember regulatory bodies are coming with delegated authority from you as the citizen. So it's you exercising your citizenship, your sovereignty of how you want to do your business, and then make it as a code of conduct. That is my take.
Right. Thank you so much. I'll come right back to you right now. And you've said, what you're trying to say is it's the wearer of the shoe that knows where it pinches the most. So if we want to regulate, what kind of a framework do we need? And how do we develop that kind of a framework that would work for self-regulation?
Thank you. Now, one of the things we'll ask ourselves is, I wish again to quote Amisi, leo jioni tutakunywa chai. Lakini wewe utafanya nini? Hautakunywa. So we define whether jioni is a time to drink tea. Number 2, we are going to define who is going to drink tea. Number 3, we define how much tea we need to drink. Okay? So in other words, the wearer of the shoe needs to know what they want. How far do I want to walk with my shoes? So you start by first checking what do I want to do in my sector. How do I want my sector run? And that's what I say, at the point number 1 is identify who you are, identify what you want to do, identify how you want to do it, and put it in a code. So that all of us will be reading from the same script. And then, of course, as you say, there are emerging issues. I remember the engineer today talking about having this place does not have a place for the disabled. But between all of us, we know this story of disabled came just the other day. I'll call it the other day because considering it just came the other day. Before, nobody bothered about them. So even as we self-regulate, we need to be aware of emerging issues. Whenever they come in, we need to take them on board. We've been talking about PPPs. PPPs were not anything for us, right? Now that they are necessary, we are talking about having a vaccination. We need to bring that on board so that we dignify our sector.
We'll get back to you. So now to Collins, let's talk about incentivization or for business. So how would self-regulation promote business in on-site sanitation?
Okay. You'll find in most cases, businesses that are on self-regulatory, it means that they have one mandate, and the mandate is the job to be done. And the job to be done usually is being intrigued with the market that you're working in, the space you're working in. So on self-regulatory, it means that you are able to regulate yourself. At the same time, you're able to have a conducive environment where you're able to work. So this brings a number of things like flexibility. You're able to run your business flexible. You're able to do what you want within the market, adhering to the type of compliance put in place. The other thing is brings ownership. If the initiative comes within me, from me, it means that I'll be accountable. I'll be able to work within the spheres of now. This is the discipline that I'll be able to develop to be able to run this business. It's like, I usually say, if you're running a business, you're running someone's business, and it's not your dream business, it means that you're a business person. And if the owner goes away, it means that the business will be able to fail. That's why we say, those people who are the vision bearers are the ones who are supposed to be on self-regulatory to be able to ensure that the business that they're going to undertake within the sanitation space, that they're able to see the vision, they're able to implement the mission with the goal structure that they come up with in the different spectrum within the watch space. So for me, I find it like, if we're able to self-regulate, it means that we understand the entire value chain, what is supposed to be done. Like, if I know that I need licenses, where do I get the licenses? If Kiwasco is doing very well in providing licenses to ensure that all the fecal sludge management is taken to the lagoon and everyone is certified, then that's the market incentive. That if I'm able to comply and I'm given a certificate and I'm giving a market, that for me to be able to access that market, I need to have like a certificate. Then I will comply because it means that I'll be able to get a market, I'll be able to sell, and upon selling, I can be able to have good margins. So with the good margins, I can be able to run a number of investment options, I can create jobs, I can be able to formalize my business, I can be able to run my business in a more practical manner other than those who are not on self-regulated.
Okay, thank you, Collins. So over to Benazir, right where Collins has left off, that if we get it right with self-regulation, then it can be a good incentive for business. But what are the existing gaps in the sector for us to even implement self-regulation? What are some of the gaps that exist and how can we fill them?
I'd say one of the gaps is lack of accountability mechanisms, in that everyone is called to undertake a specific mandate, but then in one or another, we are not talking to each other. So then that means that at the end of the day, those who are going against what is expected, they are also not being called out with regards to that. So then the limitation is that if there's no accountability mechanisms, then the self-regulatory framework, if not put in check, is also likely not to bear the results. The other bit that I talk about is also the area of awareness, in that right now, Kenya boasts of so many policies, so many legislations, but then we find that across the value chain, this information is not available to everyone. So there are people who do things the way they know, and they don't base it in this big framework. So meaning that at some point, they're also missing a mark on what good practices they need to put in place to ensure that they're doing things the right way. Because some, yeah, oh, and the other thing I'd also mention is that, and I think I mentioned in one of the sessions, is that self-regulation cannot exist on its own. It needs additional systems and structures to ensure that this actually kicks off. And so we've been talking about the manual pit emptiers. So for example, if you say we don't want them to dispose of in the drains or even in the waterways, and there's no disposal point, that also means that they're also not able to undertake their mandate well, yet we know that they play a very crucial role within the communities. And so we really need to put checks to see what are these auxiliary services and systems that need to be in place for self-regulation to also thrive, so that we're just not championing an element that cannot exist in isolation of other systems and structures being put in place. And so then the other area is on the area of just monitoring, reporting to see what is working well. I don't think we have avenues where we get to see success stories around this, so that if there's a good practice happening, how then can this be accelerated so that progressively people can take relevant action. We've had very good stories coming from Nakuru water. We've had good stories coming from Malindi water. There are also other actors doing very good work, but then these stories are not out there, so that if we share good stories, then we also can see a ripple effect taking effect.
Thank you, Benazir. So back to you, Shem. Earlier on in your remarks, you mentioned that, standards by the people, for the people, with the people. All right. So even as we think about self-regulation and setting standards, by the people, for the people, how do we ensure that we have ambitious standards and accessible standards? How do we get there?
Thank you. Now, we say that the Constitution says that every citizen has the right to reasonable sanitation. That's what the Constitution says. So for us, we're wearing the shoe of sanitation. Therefore, the burden is on us to ensure that we live the Constitution. Nobody called you to be in sanitation. Ama kuna mtu alikusurutisha? Si wewe ndio ulijiingiza hapo. Then kama uko hapo kwa sanitation, ensure that you comply with the Constitution, because we, people of Kenya, decided what Constitution we wanted. And you're in sanitation. Therefore, the burden comes on you that you have to give the Kenyan citizen reasonable sanitation. Then, from that point, then you need to build, say, consensus with the players. As you said, what do we define to be reasonable? Number one. Number two, that reasonable sanitation, what are the standards? Number three, as you say, what are the repercussions of you not following the standards? But institutionalize those standards so that you don't have a credibility deficit. The minute you don't give what they think is reasonable, you'll be running the danger of credibility. You should not have that deficit, because you have taken it upon yourself to give the Kenyan citizen a reasonable sanitation. So we need to bring to close the gaps, to know where we start, to know what we need, to institutionalize, standardize, so that we can move forward. So that would be my take on that.
All right, thank you so much. Let me come to Benazir once more before we go back to Collins. So even as we talk about voluntary standards, how can we ensure that these voluntary standards are not viewed as a burden, but as an enabler of growth and innovation? Because again, we already have our policies in place, we have our laws in place. So how do we now talk about voluntary self-regulation without making it appear like it's a burden?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's really important to have an inclusive approach. By this I mean that we are talking about this happening across different levels. So then so I'd say the communication around this is communication and messaging will be very important, because when people from different tiers get to see the value, then people can easily embrace what is being channeled or encouraged. And so the entry point is really key, so that it doesn't come in as, you have to do this. If you don't do this, then this is going to be the consequence. And so it's really important to have proper messaging and awareness creation that is embedded across different actors, because even in the WASH space, we say that there are very many players. So we're saying that, yes, we have the different constituencies. We have government, we have the civil society, we have the academia. So then how can we work together across the board to make people see the value and the need to onboard in this process, something which I believe is already being done. So it shouldn't come out as, this is a new model, this is a new framework that we are bringing into place, but it's about strengthening what is existing. Because if we come at it from the point of, we are already seeing this happening, so then how about we improve on one or two dimensions of this particular structure, then people also don't see it as a strange thing. And so, yeah, messaging is key.
All right, thank you, Benazir. Messaging is definitely key. So back to you, Collins, and again around, business, catalyzing business through self-regulation. So do you have any practical examples that you can share where business gained, competitive advantage by complying with or even exceeding voluntary standards?
Okay, I have a number of examples, but I will use my previous work example. Back in Kisumu, so we had a project working with people within the circular economy, and be able to see if we can be able to incorporate circular economy and which is agribusiness and WASH. So this specific group of entrepreneurs were able to develop their business entity. First of all was we do run the needs assessment, trying to see how best we can be able to serve these entrepreneurs. Then once we get the needs assessment, we used to do something we call business advisory and strategy, where we look at the balance scorecard of the business, and then we see where are the gaps. Is it within the technical assistance, where we can be able to say that these people need systems? Is it within the processes that you don't have those innovative apps or those like the processes for financial planning? Do you have them? Do you have licenses for Kiwasco? Do you have licenses for cabs? Now that you're going to introduce your product to the general public. And then the lastly was people and people management. We also wanted to see that the people you're bringing on board, we wanted to see the skill set in terms of who are the professionals within the business, who are the semi-skilled, and those who. So we find that one thing that was missing was business formalization. And the first thing we did was to tell them that for you to be able to work within this space, you have to be licensed with Kiwasco. But the good thing about Kiwasco is they usually ensure that all these people dealing with pit MTRs, those who doing they call it Hanisaka and such, that they are compliant. And there are a number of certificates that they need to get in terms of health certificate, the vaccination they go through. So it was a list of technical bit that we were able to learn to be able to know that it's not just the business itself that needs to run. So we need to standardize this business, to formalize, not to operate in the informal, traditional way, but in a way that they style up. We can even present them for pitch deck, exhibition, to be able to help them win those markets, win those grants. And for that, we saw an intertwining model where we bring the technical assistance, where the regulatory comes in, the frameworks and the procedures. And then we do a good job with the soft skills, where we do now the BDS trainings, we do the advisory and follow-ups, and then we're able now to do a strategy for them that will be able to combine the two. Now, once we style that up, we now look at the position of the bank. Now, is the bank willing to fund these people with these terms and regulations put in place? Because also the bank has their own requirements in terms of, now we need to see all these documents. Do you have them ready? So once we do that, we see that you are investor ready, so that even for us, we'll be very happy to take you to the bank and say, you can fund this particular private sector. You can fund this particular business. You can fund this particular social enterprise within the WASH space. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Collins. Back to you, Shem. Still on the point of sharing examples and experiences, do you have any examples of other sectors that have adopted voluntary standards successfully? And what lessons can we draw from them in the sanitation space?
Thank you. Voluntary regulation. Most of us know chamas, don't we? Akina mama. So we know chamas. When Hamisi, myself, na yule mzee na yule mwingine, we are in the house, tunaona sofa set imeletwe. Tunauliza, na hii imetoka wapi? Na huku kupatiana pesa ya nini? Ya viti iletwe. What has happened? Mama ameenda pale chama, kura imekuwa ni yake, amepata, and they have agreed, tukishapata pesa, hautaenda kuogelea na maji ya chumvi Mombasa. Buy something to upgrade your home. Sasa mnataka example ingine kama if hiyo wapi? See, that is a typical one. Which means now, when we're in this space, as you say, we are the ones who know what we want. We know what is good for us. As I say, we codify it. Right. The other one. So I've just given you the basic one. I don't mean, ladies, you are that basic. By the way, you are wonderful. Kwa sababu bila nyinyi tungekuwa wapi anyway. If you check matatus, and I'll borrow from my young friend from Uganda, they call them kamunyes. Those guys are so organized that you can travel between Masaka and Kampala 120 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken. Mbarara is 150 after that. And you'll only get only one policeman on the road. Reason? The people of the Matatu Sacco decided that if your Matatu has got worn-off tires, it is not going to leave the stage. Self-regulation. The one Inspector General of Police who was called Major General Katumba Wamala, he said that there is no way I'm going to put a policeman on the road to check worn-out tires. If it left the stages worn-out tires, there is no way those worn-out tires are going to improve on the road. And with that one, you'll find that sector thrived. Kenya, when we wanted to have the Michuki rules, we were supposed to be a sample. I remember I traveled to Malawi that time. And they said, Kenyans, we are watching you. If you succeed, we are going to borrow from you. So there is nothing better than self-regulation. We have got all professions. Doctors are self-regulating. The Poisons Board is self-regulating. Literally every profession is self-regulating. And when it is self-regulated, as I said, you bring out the best of what you want for yourself. And then you cascade it, and all of you agree this is the way we are going to go. So if professions, those other professions, can self-regulate, what about sanitation? As if we are believers that truly there is money in shit, shit is gold, can we mine it in the right way? And there is nobody who is going to make you mine that other than yourself. So examples abound in literally every profession. So I think we should not be left behind. we believe in ourselves, we brought ourselves to it, we'd better make the best out of it.
All right, so sheet is good, which takes me back to Collins on incentivization of sanitation business through self-regulation. So what kind of incentives, be it financial, reputational, among others, would work best to motivate businesses to adopt self-regulations or standards within self-regulation?
Okay, I'll give the immediate example being, if you are given a certificate of service by an institution, you can use that certificate of service to be able to apply for another job, and for another job. The same way it applies. If I'm self-compliant, it means that I can be able to use that accreditation or the certificate to be able to help me maneuver through the ecosystem, the business ecosystem itself. Like, for example, those people who get tenders, you need to have LPOs. So it means that within your framework, you need to know, do I have the right requirements that fits the LPO requirement, so that if I go to the tender person to bid for that tender, I am the first option that comes up. The same thing happens if you're going to the bank and you're self-compliant. It means that you are de-risking yourself. If you de-risk yourself, it means that the bank is willing to offer you support. It means that if the bank, which is risk averse, is working with an entrepreneur who is a risk taker. So these are two different entities. So the bank usually say, you come up to us. We don't come down to you, because the regulations from the bank are from the CBK, and your regulations are your own regulations. So can we find a model where we work together to be able to help you get these funds? So it's upon your initiative as an entrepreneur within the private sector, within the social enterprise, if you are a businessman, an owner manager. One thing that makes businesses fail is decisions. And the decision you make today, it will either impact into two things. One, you thrive. Two, missed opportunities. So if you comply, so we are able to see that you'll be able to maneuver through the value chain smoothly. And I'll also give another good example. If you're working with suppliers, suppliers will need to see, are you compliant? Do you have these certificates? So these are some of the small market incentives that gives you an edge within the competitive space of business. And those who have all these things figured out are the ones who thrive. For example, if you're working with a broker, since we can't beat out the aggregators and the brokers, then you can't sell in a market today. For example, I'll give you a good example in Kisumu. If you go to Kibuye market with your truck full of everything, you won't sell. So you need to pass through them. So it is upon you to have all these things required for you to be able to sell. So the market incentives are like accreditation. We look at even the business style that you have. We look at KEBS. Do KEBS recognize that the kind of business that you do? We look at NEMA. Do you have NEMA certificate, so that we don't have those push and backs? Because from my side as a business development officer, I'll be able to say nothing is being invented. It's just the innovative approach. So we're not coming with something new. We're just reinventing the wheel. Like if this tap is opened manually, right now within the 5-star, 3-star hotels, we have sensors. So you don't have even to flash. So if you go to Simba Corp, you don't have to flash, and such examples. So it's up to you to be able to ensure that you receive these market incentives. And where do you get these market incentives? From the county government, from the national government. So when you adhere to all these, you'll find yourself having a competitive edge within the platform. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Collins. Shem, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, thank you, our moderator. I think one of the biggest incentives we have is the market. We are only 16% of our total population. is, is recognized in the mainstream. Now, what about the rest of the percentages? So if you just look at that, number 2, check the rate of urbanization. Just that alone. All these people, we are moving from Madare, Dinki Mwanawanzeki. When you tried to build, to change Madare, you know what happened? It has changed. People are not behaving the same way they were behaving. The space at which we are in terms of civilization gives us, in the sanitation space, a wonderful opportunity for growth just from the business perspective. Now, when I do that, then I look at the SMEs, because sometimes I work for CAM. How do we bring up micro enterprises to the level of small enterprises? We appendix them, we join them, we make them suppliers of the major multinational companies. In that way, whatever little you're producing, if you're a supplier of a big company, immediately you will find yourself upscaling. So, what do I want to say? As in the sanitation space, we need to appendix ourselves, or we need to have a collaboration with the water service providers. They'll be the mothers in those stations, in those spaces. And then we work with them, because anything we do, any mileage we cover, will go towards their impact report on sewage coverage, because their numbers will be your numbers. So if I would borrow from that aspect, and we have seen, say, for the last 10 years or so, in the last regime and the current regime, that the place of the micro enterprises is changing, because they were given, we developed that model where we are asking, where is the market for the micro enterprises? We said big enterprises subcontract to the smaller ones, and that brought spurred a lot of growth. The other thing is, in order to incentivize, we need the certification. This is something my young brother here alluded to, that what would be the best practices in our trade. 3, ensure that you professionalize your job so that you can attract talent. Yesterday we saw the other young men who are here, and today we are with them in the other place. Very smart guys. If we professionalize sanitation, we are going to attract the talent. And there is no limit to where the young people would think. You'd be shocked how far we are going to get to the next level. And of course, as I said, with that one, and the market is there for us. So I think we have more than enough incentives from the marketing perspective, from the revenue would generate, and not to mention, of course, the jobs we would have in our country.
Thank you. Over to you, Benazir, still around collaboration. So what mechanisms can we use to ensure that collaboration around self-regulation and standards lead to actual improvements?
Another good question. Maybe we can just still go back to the area of reflection, because as sanitation actors, we have a number of platforms where we can come together. I know some time back, Kawasnet, where John Seth was coordinating the Water Governance House and championing accountability for water and sanitation was not excluded in that conversation. And so it's really a space for looking at what are the existing mechanisms, or what are the existing platforms or forums that we can really plug into, and also see how to make them meaningful to help push for this particular agenda. And then also mapping the different people who are also not in the room, because we have a number of players who are also doing a good job, but in one way or another, they also don't get to sit here. So then how do we bring and mobilize different actors who can help us advance this particular cause? The other thing on collaboration, I guess we also need data management, because we talk about um, different entities conducting data, and all this is not speaking to itself, not speaking to each other. So then how do we, as a collective, just intentionally see how do we push in the same direction? Because for us to really collaborate, we need to also have a common ground. So what is our common ground? We need to let go of our priorities as different constituencies to see if we want to make progress, then how best do we do this as a collective? And also acknowledging the diverse and unique roles that each of us play within the sector. So I think if you just get to see and tap into the strength of every actor in this particular space, collaboration will also be strengthened. Thank you.
Thank you. So one last question before I open up the floor for questions. I know we should be joined by the rest at 4, so time is really running out. So one last one for you, Shem. And it's still around collaboration. So what would be the role of the different stakeholders in self-regulation? How would they come in, and basically what would their role be to ensure successful implementation of self-regulation?
Thank you very much, moderator. How do we ensure that it is sustainable? We need to think like sailors, or say the Navy, for example. In the Army, the commanding officer is behind there shouting orders. The soldier is in front there fighting. In the Navy, the admiral, the commodore, the captain, all of them are in one ship. So if it sinks, it doesn't leave anybody behind. So what you're saying is all actors must know that we are in it, all of us. The major players, their coverage for sewage and sanitation will appear in the impact report if they onboard more small other players. We are in it, all of us. So to me, I think that is the driving strength. Then when we are looking at it is this conversation which we have started, Wasareb is here, Waspa is here, and all of us are here. There can be a better point for discussion than this one. And when we know what we want to drive it, we have got another 16 minus 100 is an 8 what? 84. We have got another 84 coverage to do. Can we pull all of us together towards that direction? There is no regulator who will come and tell us anything. We will tell the regulator what we want to do in the market. We will tell them what we want, remembering that we are Kenyan citizens. We brought ourselves to the sanitation space, and the Constitution states every citizen has the right for reasonable what? Sanitation. We shall take it upon ourselves together, the big actors and us small, and contribute, and the summation sign is going to be the best, and it will not need anything more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shem. So now over to the audience. So we've heard from our panelists who've responded to very key questions. So if you have any question, please raise up your hand and you tell us to whom the question is directed. For the next 15 minutes, let's keep them brief.
Thank you very much. I know this panel was somehow reoriented, reorganized, restructured, but it had substance. Thank you very much. Shem, minimum reasonable standards. That's where the problem is. That is the elephant in the house. I don't know what informed the wording in the Constitution, like you said, and I'm coming back to you around the minimum reasonable. Minimum, you see there is minimum, and then they are reasonable. I mean, how can minimum be reasonable? You see? Shame. How can minimum be at the same time reasonable standards for sanitation? That's why sanitation has been denied money. That's why sanitation has been denied visibility. And that is why some people sweat at the collar when some of us talk about issues around shit. They really sweat. Well, I don't know. I think they sweat everywhere. Now, secondly, regulation. And I want to give an example. You know, when we were growing up, and I gave that example in the morning about the waiting habits of children in some homes where they were to be regulated. Ananyimwa chai, anapigwa. In fact, ukipatikana na mama kama unakunywa chai, you are kicked. Mbwa, wewe toka hapa utanini utakojoa. So you are denied some opportunities because of that character. And I remember we had one of my sisters, you know, she was a perpetual bedwetter. Of course, fortunately, she's intelligent, and some guy married her off. I don't know whether it's regulating her or she's, I don't know. That one is so when she visits sometimes, and my mom is there and we are looking at her, we really laugh so much because somebody is helping us to regulate her somewhere. She's no longer our problem. She's somebody's wife. Now, coming to the business activation. At the Pan-African space, we have a rallying call, the Pan-African Association of Sanitation Actors. We have a rallying call of a city, a treatment plant owned by the private sector. And that is why why that is very important is because we want to manage the space. We want to manage the reporting. We want to manage the data collection. We are not limited to the time of dislodging, like as it were. If you go to Ruai, they tell you we are closed at 5. So self-regulating our space, having our own infrastructure, which the duty bearers have failed to activate, will actually activate several businesses around a treatment plant. Because that treatment plant will be a center of learning, a center of excellence. We will actually do recovery there. For the raw material, we will not charge our members to dislodge because we need the raw material. So we want them to bring. So for us, even our members will be making money because we're not charging them the tipping fees. We want the material. Bring the material. What we will activate out of the raw material is what will actually sustain the plant. So that is our model at the Pan-African space, and we are working on it, and very soon we shall be inviting you guys to a launch of a treatment plant that is wholly owned by the private sector, operating 24 hours, no red tape, no nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Blaine Zasires from Uganda, working with SDI Kenya. As I was reflecting on elevating the standards, I had two things in mind. When the why is clear, when the how is known, the why is clear. That is in regards to, is sanitation key? Is it important? Then if it is that important, the will automatically to organically grow by itself. Then there's an aspect of responsiveness that I really picked in since the morning sessions, and I was digesting them into things. The responsiveness to the needs, those will be economic or social in terms of value, and then the responsiveness to the risks, because the risks are something that we are addressing at the end of the day. That will be the stigma, that will be the environmental aspect, and I feel if the response is towards that, then we are really governing ourselves well. Thank you.
Thank you. I would stand because I'm a backbencher. my question will be directed to Benazir. You mentioned that it would be important to have certain conditions fulfilled before self-regulation can work. And you gave an example where the manual MTRs, for example, must have somewhere to deposit before they can be subjected to certain self-regulation standard. So my question then would be, which target should we fulfill first? Is it to have the self-regulation and then continually raise the bar, or have absolute ideal standards and then say, based on the ideal standards, then this, what my senior brother is protesting, the minimum standard, we say then this is the minimum standard below which you cannot go. So which should come first? Is it a case of chicken and egg, or what? I hope it is clear.
Any other question to the panelists? We've not had a question from government. Any question when we talk self-regulation? All right, we'll get back. All right, so over to you. We can start with Shem.
Thank you. Yes. You say that every citizen has the right to reasonable sanitation. The word minimum should be deleted. So I start from there. Number two, our voices start now. And I want to borrow from the banks. Initially, naona yule mzee huyu yuko hapa, na pengine amisi later, were in the days when banks were closing at 3. And if it is on Saturday, they close at 12. Yeah, there are some of you never got the luxury of going through that heaven. But now, what happens? You transfer your funds anytime, all the time, from any place. And I tell you that I can see a bright future for us, because we are defining the rules of the game ourselves, such that what we think is a minimum today, or as my brother was saying, do we have the ideal standards and then we tell people start working towards? Yes. I see us moving in the right way. Our voices are there. They are being heard. The other thing, and again I'll allude to this, if you check Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, the word sanitation, I think, came in just the other day, and I'll call it the other day during Kibaki's time. It wasn't anywhere there, because sanitation was not an issue. We didn't even have the water in the first place. Now we have water, we can go for the next level. And the time for that next level is now. So I think it will be progressive. And what he says about the Pan-African space, we can't wait to see that, because that will be the sample for what we want. And you'll be shocked. Once we set that standard, then that becomes our industrial standard, because the ones who are giving the standard ourselves. And then about responsiveness, precisely what I've said. People complained, young man, if your dad never send you money by midday on a Saturday, you are doomed, mpaka Monday. And then even that Monday, the bank manager will come at 10 o'clock. You have to wait for the banker's check. Is that what we're calling it? We need to wait for the banker's check. And the only person to sign the banker's check is the manager. Now we have changed all that. Our speed of responsiveness, due to digitization, due to the current level of technology, I see a good uptake. We have positioned ourselves. I think we will be way above the tide. Thank you. That's my take.
Yeah, thank you for the question about whether self-regulation, which should come first, whether the case you eat the egg or the chicken. But in this context, I'll say we have both the egg and the chicken. And so it's really to look at seeing self-regulation operating and not wishing it away, but then it also provides an opportunity for advocacy, because in Kenyan context, we see that innovation is always ahead of policy. Innovation is always ahead of regulatory frameworks. So then if that is the case, then it means that if we say we are waiting for the standards, then it means that we are also going to cripple a sector that is also growing. And so it still doesn't remove the element of individual responsibility, but then it's also a push for government or relevant bodies to ensure that proper standards are in place and proper infrastructure is in place to support self-regulation.
To wind up, so one last question for our panelists as we close. So if you had one recommendation for stakeholders looking to champion voluntary standards in on-site sanitation, be it policymakers, entrepreneurs, donors, among others, what would that recommendation be? And Collins, you've been a bit quiet. Let's start with you.
Okay. One recommendation would be the simplest but the most overlooked aspect, which is relationship. How do we create relationships within the various stakeholders that we have, so that at Quakers Group, you'll find we usually champion for no silo thinking, no silo activities. So how do we partner together? How do we create that relationship? Because it always tones down to relationship. Then the other things will just fall in place. So if I have a good relationship with the health, the people providing health licenses, it means that it will be smooth on my side as a private, as the private sector. Then also the recommendation that our biggest advantage as Africa is the private sector. So how can we ensure that within ourselves, because we are the owner managers with the family businesses, we are the sole proprietors, we are the partners and the mergers. So how do you ensure that the framework works for us? Thank you.
I'd call everyone to improve their capacity, because we are saying that the environment is dynamic, it's changing, and there's also a lot happening around us. So then they just need to see how best do you improve your skill set, your knowledge, so that you are able to perform your work better. Thank you.
I'll begin. Do we know what we want? We know what we want. We know what hurdles we are facing. Good. So, mine would be, if we know what we want, let us document it. She talked about data. Do you know what data should be collected? Let us collect it. Now, then from there, let's go to advocacy. We have got WASREB. We are in bed with them, aren't we? So we pull them to the bed by force. We know what we want, we know who bothers us, we know what the adults are, and we know what is best for us. So we sit down and tell them this is how we want our industry to be. And then amongst ourselves, as you say, it is dynamic. We find ways of improving and use of technology as we move. There is no outsider who is going to help sanitation be of age other than ourselves. Let us take up our sovereign authority as Kenyans and as people interested and who have voluntarily picked the space of sanitation and make sanitation what we think it should be. Thank you.
All right, what a point to end. Thank you so much, everybody, for making the time. Thank you. I will not overemphasize what has already been said, but key things that have come out. For self-regulation to work, we need to understand that we are all in it together. So the need to collaborate, the need to understand what our needs are and put our best foot forward. With that said, thank you so much for making the time and enjoy the rest of your evening.